practice with?
I practiced with Paul. Paul did some major healing with me. He asked me if I was maybe either frightened or excited, and I said I was ambivalent. That's all I knew, is I was feeling a deep heaviness and ambivalence. Once we entered into the space that he created, which was beautiful and gentle and offered me chocolate, we snuggled and talked, and I was able to stream out of my mouth all of my worries and fears, and I felt much more grounded. From there, the gentle touch and stroking and massage and things like that helped me feel safe and ready for the deeper work. What happened is what typically happens when I'm in a sexual space, is I started to chase an orgasm. I wanted it badly. And so I allowed myself, without his permission, to fade into fantasy. And so at this point, we were in the third portion of this evening, and he said, "Can we pause? I don't feel connected to you." Totally called me on it. I acknowledged that I was fantasizing, and he acknowledged that can happen for him too, so there was no shame there, but it really was an invitation for me to be present with what was happening. Which is, I was at a Tantra weekend, and the moon was lighting up the trees outside our window, and I was in this really interesting position with a man whose fingers were inside me for the purpose of healing. And I asked him to give me more pressure, and he did, and then more pressure, and that's when it started to sting. And I thought that he was doing some damage and suggested he stop, and he reminded me of the 5-second rule, which is maybe there's something here. So in the spirit of inquiry, I just allowed for this sting to be, and that is when the magic began to happen. And so I'll just tell you what I felt like happened. What first started to happen is I began to exorcise, E-X-O-R-C-I-S-E, negative male energy that was stuck inside of me. And I was like, and I was getting angry, and I was crying, and I was wailing, and I was strong, like, "Be gone, get out of me." Wow. So once that resting phase happened, I expressed that to Paul, and he said, "Yeah, I had a feeling there was some male thing going on there." Okay, so we got that business taken care of. We went back to the business of touching that area. And that's when I decided to do some housekeeping. And so I went back to all generations of my women, and I cleared out anybody who raped anybody I was related to, and any pain any female that I am related to went through, and I worked that out. I cried and I shrieked and I yelled at every man who, in ignorance, hurt anybody. Then I went to Middle East and Africa.
Wow.
And I wrapped around any kind of healing that I could give to any woman who was feeling it there, and that's when I got very overwhelmed, that the hurt was too big for me. But then we took a pause, and Paul reminded me that, you know, a rock in a pond creates ripples, and a bigger rock, you know, so that I did my part, what I could. But I just accepted that I was overwhelmed.